Joining us is a business and technology advisory, Adekunle Akindeji. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you. Good morning.
You know, this news has been met with mixed reactions because a lot of Nigerians use data. We are mobilized in Nigeria. But how does it come to you? Are you happy about this news?
Personally, I'm indifferent.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Why is that?
First, because I play in that space. I play in the technology space, and I know that the quest for data hasn't even begun yet. You know, as you advance in technology and what technology can do, the appetite to want to do a lot of things and connectivity begins to grow. But going to the news and what has been said about the news, I'm not particularly sure how that will play out or span out, as it were, because first is that I always encourage a system where the law of demand and supply is allowed to play its course. Okay. There's a need for regulation in any sphere, in any business that you operate. But there's also a place for caution. If not too far away, when you look at what has happened in the telcos, in the telecom space, from fining to all sorts of policy, order, churning of people, a lot has happened in that space. And I think that the federal government and people who are in the policy making needs to take things, personal opinion now, needs to take things a bit more calm. There are several ways to skin a goat. You, for example, feel the pain of Nigerians, okay? Like you say, the two ways to grow a business. You can either reduce your price, okay, so that you have more people, or you can go other way around. Increase the market, maintain your price so that you have more people in that.
Competitors.
Yes, so I think the latter should be an option that we should be seeking.
So invariably what you are saying is Nigeria's approach, the government's approach to this is not what it should be.
I'm not particularly sure that will get us to where we need to be at this point in particular. I would rather a situation where there is a bit of collaboration and talk, but more importantly, open up the net. Reduce, if need be, the criteria in getting into that market. Let the forces of the market determine. If you have maybe currently 5 or 6 telecom system playing, what if we have 10? So the issue of reducing your data would not even come in. You will have to strive to remain a relevance in the market. That's a better approach to stimulate the economy than coming in from policy to say you have to do this. I mean, put in mind that business objective has been placed for these telcos at the beginning of the year. There's certain EBITDA that you must meet. You cannot just reduce data or price of services just because the government or certain policies wants you to.
No, because the government is saying Nigerians have been complaining, and so it's not a yardstick for the telcos to look at it and look at this in its merits and determine what next to do.
So Nigerians are not only complaining about data. Nigerians are complaining about every other thing. We complain about bad medical health services. We complain about transportation. So you're not going to tell the telcos because Nigerians are complaining. Again, like I said to you, give people opportunity to make choices. You would also, if you take another look at the banking sector, many years back, you probably with some banking needs to have about 50,000 or 60,000 to open an account. Yeah. You pretty much go open such with 0 naira now. What has happened is digitalization and technology has changed the way things are done. So you can move your funds, you can do transfer without necessarily going through the traditional bank. So such will happen also if we allow that and allow more players to play in that sector.
More players come into the industry.
To play in that sector.
More investors in the sector.
All right, Adekunle Akindeji, thank you
welcome.
for your time. Joining us is a business and technology advisory, Adekunle Akindeji. Thank you for joining us at TVC Breakfast. Now, apparently the telcos have reacted, saying that this is somewhat insensitive and cannot be because of the high cost of operating in Nigeria. But then Nigerians feel they are being exploited. Something has to give, don't it?
So I think first the intention by federal government or the call for the reduction in data in itself is not out of place.
Absolutely.
But I think the intention is what we need to look at before talking about the modalities. So if you have 20 people on a certain device that you have to use, there's a quality level of an output that you get. If you have 50 people on the same device, apparently the quality level of that particular service reduces. So what I fear would happen is when you have a policy that try to muscle, the telco will probably give way, but then it comes back to the user, the quality level of the services that you would eventually then.
That's what it will.
That's what will result into, because
really?
the cost of infrastructure would not reduce in any way. If I still need to provide the same services to you at a lesser cost, what would eventually happen is I need to bring in more people, but then reduce the quality of the services that I'm giving to you.
You know what? In other climes, these data companies make more money from Nigeria. And so whether they reduce or not, they will still make more money. Now, looking at all of this, don't you think this will create more employment? Because already the internet has employed a lot of people. And so because of the high cost of data, some more people are not able to do some things with their data, with their internet facilities. Now, won't this create more employment?
I quite disagree with that. So I think like I said, what the government is trying to do is not in itself a bad thing. But I just think that the approach is what I do not agree with. So I would rather, and we've seen this play out in other sectors, where in the banking, for example, you go to a bank here and you say the interest rate is astronomical. It just doesn't make any sense.
You move to the other one.
And if you decide that you don't want to do the contemporary banking, there are loan sharks who would say to you, I don't need collateral.
Well, we don't have those alternatives when it comes to the telcos.
So then you go back to what I said, which is reduce the barrier into entering into that sector. Let's have more players play in that sector. So what would happen in the initial stage would be that people will offer things that are more juicy. If I have just 2 or 3 options, my options are very
but now that we don't have the players, the options.
So in the immediate, maybe what we may want to consider is to begin to play on quality. So for example, let me get value for what I'm paying for. So if I pay for 10 gigabytes of service, for example, let me be sure that what I receive is 10 gigabytes.
Now that is what Nigerians are complaining about.
That is the issue now,
the issue.
because Nigerians cannot, they don't give you details of your data consumption, how it flies. In fact,
you subscribe today, tomorrow it's all gone.
And then it's gone.
In the real sense of it, it's not so much about the details. Again, I'll go back. I think it's about the communication that goes out. So as a telco, I want to sell a service and I say to you, buy 1,000 naira and get 1,000 naira and an additional 30 megabytes data. So I'm expecting 1 gig, 30 megabytes as
Absolutely,
it were.
yeah.
But what I have paid for in the actual sense is a 1 gigabyte. So what happens is in my own mental mind, quote and unquote, I'm expecting to have that particular fraction. But again, maybe I agree with you to say let's have, and technology can solve that, to say as a matter of principle, have a dashboard where I can query, just like you have in the banking,
it's important.
What I have used. No, so that's different from saying that they have to reduce the cost. Telling people to put a provision where I can query what I have used is different from telling me to reduce the cost of my data. Do you understand what
Nigerians feel exploited. That is the feeling.
So
all of this have to be in place.
In place. So maybe the conversation should be with the telco to say, look, at no point should a consumer report to say or have a difference to say I bought a certain amount of value and this is what I get. Is there a place where I can go for a recourse? Check what I've used, how I've used it, when and how. And when I have complaints, I can make those complaints, come through.
All right. Adekunle Akindeji, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Joining us now is a business and technology advisory, Adekunle Akindeji. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, some have argued that at the heart of this move by the government, perhaps, is generation of funds, since government is looking at generating 80% of its revenue from non-oil. But then again, there are concerns, really. What do you make of this? Will this actually address the problem, or is this going to even complicate issues? Because Nigerians are worried that perhaps they're going to be taxed for this as well.
Well, so I'm not able to validate this at this point in time. But if you look at the antecedents, one may want to think so. There was a move not quite long on the banking sector where USSD, transactional charges was being passed to users, and that was reversed to say, look, the bank has to bear that particular cost. I hope we will not have a situation where after pushing for the reduction in the cost of data, and you have a pushback from the telcos, federal government then brings up an agenda to say, okay, you know what, we would provide the necessary infrastructure, quote and unquote, but then we would like to tax so for every recharge you have in certain ways. I personally may not have issue with taxes. What I have issue with is multiple taxes.
That's what we see every time.
Yeah, so I think this government has to be very clear, strategy-wise, as to how things needs to be done. Even if you want to, I don't think everything has to be all at once. It's been in the news over months, from the workers' salary increment to 7.5% increment to the USSD tax to all sorts.
There's even consumption tax.
So let's come clear. If the country is broke and you need to generate more IGR, as the case may be, can we be more innovative in the way to do that, rather
more strategic?
Yeah, more strategic, rather than bringing pains and inferring pains on consumers or Nigerians, etc.
Okay, perhaps the telcos decide, okay, let us reduce the cost of data and all for Nigerians. Looking at the business environment, we don't have infrastructure in place. These telcos still use generators 24 hours a day. They still have to grapple with, like we all said, multiple taxation and bureaucracies in government when they have to do some registration or drive some business activities within themselves. How do we ensure that, despite the fact that the government is calling for a reduction, the telcos as well can get value for their money and the government put things in place?
I think what may happen is, first is this call would not happen now. There will be a pushback. The government may need to go back to the drawing board and then give a time frame. So in the next 1 year, we are clamoring, or we are hoping that the cost of any consumable shouldn't go beyond this particular amount, first of all. Secondly is that I have advocated that quality should be used as a benchmark for this particular service. If people complain, the same way you make a phone call and I have a drop in calls for 3-4 times, and I can have it,
I can get my money back.
To get my money back, to be able to get a refund, you would figure that somehow there will be, a response, a more positive one from the telco, not necessarily asking them to crash down the price on data consumption.
Aside that, the telcos have said that this could somehow, there might be implications to this. And for you, are there implications in terms of foreign investors? Because they're saying that with the cost of operation and now asking that we do this within 5 days, there could be implications to this.
So first, I think the 5 days timeline is not feasible in any way. Secondly, yes, there will be a ripple effect to that. So because I'm then worried as a foreign investor bringing in funds into the country, there's too much of changes in the dynamics and policies of what happening in the Nigerian economy. And if you look at it very closely also, there are people playing in that ecosystem. If I have 20 people who work for me who are directly involved in this provision of the services as a telco, and I have to reduce the cost of what I do, I will let go some other people. So you may find out in trying to get one, you lose another. Jobs then becomes on the line as well for the people who work in that sector.
All right, Adekunle Akindeji, thank you for your insight into this topic.